All right, let's jump right in. When we think about the first Christians, our minds usually go straight to theology, to scripture. But what was it actually like to be one of them? Today, we're going to peel back the layers of history and look at the raw, messy, lived experience of these brand new communities, how they started, what kept them together, and, yeah, what almost tore them apart.
So, this is really the big question we're asking here. Once you get past the famous verses, what did daily life actually feel like? What were the real world challenges, the fights, the core ideas that shaped their existence in a world that, frankly, was often hostile to this new way of life? Let's dig in.
Okay, first thing you have to get your head around is that becoming a Christian wasn't just, adopting a new set of beliefs. No, it was about joining a completely different kind of family, a countercultural movement that totally rewired how you saw yourself and your place in the world. The Greek word they used for this was ekklesia, and it points to this massive shift in thinking. Your identity wasn't about I anymore. It was about the collective we. They truly saw themselves as a single body, with each person playing a crucial part in a much, much bigger story, what they believed was God's grand plan for the world. And this gets right to the core of what they were trying to build. This wasn't just a club or a social group. The goal was this living, breathing community where every single person mattered for their own sake, but also everyone lived to help the whole group flourish. It was this totally radical vision of being in it together. So that's the ideal. But how did they actually try to live this thing out day to day? Let's take a look at the practices and the really powerful ideas that acted like the glue for these new communities. In the very beginning, especially in Jerusalem, these first believers didn't just hide away. Not at all. They were a very public, very visible presence. This bit from the Book of Acts shows they were still a part of Jewish religious life, meeting up in big public places like the temple courts. They were kind of a movement within a movement. Now, this right here might be one of the most revolutionary social ideas they ever had. See, the Roman world was all about hierarchy, status, and power, but the Apostle Paul comes along with this metaphor of a single body. And in this body, the people society usually ignored, the weak, the dishonorable, they weren't just included, they were essential. That just turns the entire social pyramid completely upside down. And the one practice that was meant to show this unity, to make it real, was the Lord's Supper. Now, don't picture the quiet, formal ritual we might see today. This was part of an actual shared meal, a powerful weekly symbol designed to remind everyone again and again that they were all one. But, as we're about to see, even the strongest symbols can start to crack. Right, because for all these beautiful ideals, these were communities made up of real, flawed people. And anytime you get people together, you're going to get politics, personality clashes, and some seriously messy fights. The ideal was about to crash headfirst into a very complicated reality. Just look at the church in Corinth. It's the perfect case study of this internal chaos. Instead of being one body, they broke off into these little factions, these personality cults built around their favorite leaders. I'm with Paul. Well, I'm with Apollos. Some even got spiritually arrogant, saying they only followed Christ, which was, of course, just another way of dividing themselves. It was petty, competitive, and a total mess. And here's the deepest irony of all. That meal, the Lord's Supper, the very thing designed to show their unity, became a huge source of division in Corinth. Apparently, the wealthy members were showing up and eating all the food before the poorer members, who were often laborers, could even get there. It turned a symbol of oneness into an act of public humiliation. But the fights weren't just about personalities. They were facing huge theological questions that had massive real-world results. The Jerusalem Council had to deal with the biggest one. Did a non-Jew have to become culturally Jewish first in order to follow Jesus? The stakes couldn't have been higher. This decision would define who was in and who was out. And their answer, that God made no distinction, changed the future of the entire movement. And this line from Paul's letter to the Galatians basically slams the door on that whole debate. It completely redefines the community. He's saying the thing that marks you as part of this group isn't an external, ethnic thing like circumcision. It's an internal reality. It's about a faith working through love. That's the new foundation. So, as if all that internal drama wasn't enough to deal with, these little communities were also trying to survive in a world that was deeply suspicious of them and often openly hostile. The pressure from the inside was matched by some serious pressure from the outside.
This table really shows you the fundamental problem. You've got Roman society, which ran on honor, status, and public power. Then you have this new Christian ethic, which is all about humility, service, and mutual concern. These weren't just different opinions, it was a clash of operating systems, and it created friction absolutely everywhere.
And that friction had real life or death consequences. This wasn't some theoretical risk. Leaders like the Apostle Paul spent years chained up in prison, knowing full well that their next trial could very easily be their last. The threat of official persecution was a constant, looming reality.
Now, this number, 4, it might not look like much, but think about what it represents. During just one of Paul's imprisonments, messengers made 4 separate, incredibly dangerous long-distance trips between him and the single church in Philippi. 4. That shows you the unbelievable level of commitment and risk people were willing to take just to keep the network connected.
So you have to ask yourself, with all of this internal division and the severe external threats, how on earth did this movement even survive, let alone grow? Let's break down the key ingredients that created their incredible resilience. When you boil it all down, it seems to come back to these 3 things. First, they were all in on a shared story, a mission that gave their struggles profound meaning. Second, they didn't just ignore their problems. They practiced mutual accountability. They actually confronted conflict, believing it could lead to healing. And finally, they were driven by this unshakable hope in a future that made their current suffering seem temporary.
Paul just nails this forward-looking hope with this fantastic athletic metaphor. He pictures himself like a runner in a race, eyes locked on the finish line, not looking back. This wasn't about escaping reality, it was about reframing it. That ultimate hope gave them the strength they needed to get through the day-to-day grind. And that really leaves us with one last thought. When you look at their messy, complicated, but ultimately tough-as-nails story of trying to build a community against all the odds, what can we learn from it today? For any group, religious or not, what does it really take to create unity in a world that feels just as fractured as theirs did?